16. Things making your home look cluttered. After 60. A journey to a calmer, more organized space. Martha sat at her dining table, sipping her hot cup of tea while gazing into her living room. It was a cool Sunday morning, but instead of feeling relaxed, she felt a little annoyed. Not at anything specific, but at the mess. At 64, Martha had spent decades accumulating belongings, from sentimental gifts to childhood keepsakes. But they now seemed more like obstacles than treasures. Her home, once a cozy haven, had begun to feel heavy. A visit from her daughter the week before had been something of a wake-up call. "Mum," her daughter Laura said, sifting through stacks of bills on the counter, "you don't even use half of this stuff anymore. Why don't we make a project out of decluttering? It'll feel so freeing." At first, Martha resisted. She felt guilty about letting go of things people had given her, items tied to memories and objects she felt she might need someday. But after some reflection, she decided Laura was right. It was time to reevaluate. And so began Martha's journey to declutter her home and rediscover peace in her space. Here's what she learned along the way. 16 things making her house look cluttered, and how she handled each one. 1. Invisible clutter. Tackling papers and sentimental guilt, Martha's biggest frustration, sat glaringly in front of her. Piles of papers. The dining table, the kitchen counter, and even the small desk in her bedroom were covered in old receipts, unpaid bills, and manuals for gadgets she no longer owned. She remembered Laura's advice: digitize what you can and let go of what you don't need. Martha spent an entire day going through the paperwork pile by pile. Bank statements and receipts, older than a few years, went straight into the shredder. She paid off a utility bill that she had completely forgotten about and set up autopay for future bills, so she wouldn't have to wrestle with paper anymore. Then there were the sentimental items, the vase from an old co-worker, the clock her aunt gave her decades ago. Martha felt a pang of guilt as she held them. But then she reminded herself the memories were what mattered, not the objects. She decided to donate the items to a local charity, comforting herself with the thought that someone else would find joy in them. 2. Clearing out expired medications. The small medicine cabinet in her bathroom had become a black hole of forgotten pills, ointments, and bandages. Some painkillers, she realized, had expired over 5 years ago. Reluctantly, she removed every single item and sorted it into keep, dispose, or replace. She was surprised at how much clearer her mind felt afterward. Less clutter, even in a small area, made a difference. 3. Outdated décor. A quiet revolution. Martha glanced at her faux flower arrangements and worn curtains. At one time, they'd been trendy and beautiful, but now they felt, how should she put it, tired. When Laura suggested thin, breezy curtains and a few fresh plants instead, Martha hesitated. She had always believed modernizing would be expensive, but after a trip to a local store, she picked up a simple pothos plant and light-colored curtains, both at reasonable prices. The transformation was immediate. Her living room looked brighter, and something she couldn't quite explain felt lighter, too. Who knew that such a small change could influence her mood? 4. Junk drawers. The hidden chaos. Everyone has a junk drawer, right? Martha's had 3. One in the kitchen, one in the hallway, and one in the bedroom. Each was the same mix of random keys, old batteries, mismatched screws, and pens that hadn't seen ink in years. Just one drawer at a time, Laura reminded her, as they sat cross-legged on the floor. Every single object told a story, but Martha learned to let go. By the next evening, the items were sorted neatly into small organizers or tossed out altogether. The newfound order made cooking, crafting, and daily routines much more efficient. Old tech gadgets, saying goodbye to dinosaurs. The drawer of outdated gadgets was Martha's personal black hole. Old cell phones, remote controls, and countless tangled cords were collecting dust. She couldn't bring herself to throw them away before because what if they're useful one day? But that imaginary someday never came. With Laura's help, Martha discovered a local e-recycling service. Getting rid of the clutter made her feel as though she'd gained a piece of clarity. 6. Emotional clutter, the hardest challenge of all. The next challenge was hard, perhaps because it meant confronting years of her life. A chest at the end of her bed held old trophies, photographs, and even a wedding dress she hadn't looked at in decades. Sitting with these items, Martha rifled through the emotions they evoked. It was harder than she thought. Laura had suggested digitizing old photos and creating scrapbooks for her favorite memories. It was a slow process. But as Martha preserved the memories digitally, she realized something important. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. As for clothes, Martha donated the ones she no longer wore, including items she loved but no longer fit. The act of parting ways with these things was painful, but in the end, liberating. 7. Everyday clutter. Cleaning the little things, Martha opened the drawer, holding her plastic containers and lids, only to be greeted by a chaotic mess. Finding a matching lid had become an Olympic-level event in her house. She gathered all the containers and checked. Those missing lids were tossed, duplicates were donated, and what remained was neatly stacked. It didn't take more than 30 minutes, but every time she opened the drawer now, she sighed with relief. She carried this newfound discipline to her supply of scissors, pens, and small household gadgets, keeping only what she truly used. It was amazing how quickly the small pockets of her life felt more spacious. 8. Hobby, supplies, moving on. Martha had always been an avid knitter, but arthritis had made it hard to enjoy the craft. Her knitting needles, colourful yarns, and half-finished projects sat untouched in the corner of a closet. She realized she was holding on to them out of nostalgia. Grateful for the memories, she packed up the supplies and donated them to a local craft group. 9. Surprising clutter in the pantry. It wasn't until Martha took everything out of her pantry that she realized just how many expired spices, half-used pasta boxes, and ancient cans of beans she had. The process of sorting brought a sense of accomplishment. This is how I'll start cooking healthier, she thought, as she neatly rearranged the shelves. 10. A pile of broken promises. In the garage, Martha was confronted by tools, half-finished DIY projects, and broken appliances she'd saved to fix someday. But when she looked at the dusty items, she realized someday never came. Laura gave her a reality check, encouraging her to either repair or dispose of these items immediately. And she did. By the end, the garage looked like a functional space again. Chapter 11. Bulky furniture. Downsizing for freedom. Martha loved her large, well-loved sofa, and her heavy dining table. But the truth was, they overwhelmed the room. Downsizing to lighter, multi-purpose furniture was a compromise, but one that sparked joy every time she walked into her home. The spaces felt open, not crowded, and even had room for guests to move freely. 12. Collections. Limiting, not losing. Martha had always been a collector. Figurines, knickknacks, and souvenirs from travels, but the sheer volume had transformed once lovely displays into cluttered chaos. She decided to keep only her most treasured pieces and donated the rest. Now her shelves looked curated and intentional, drawing attention to sentimental items rather than the clutter surrounding them. 13. Basements and attics. Forgotten spaces. The basement and attic were next on Martha's list. Filled with items from her children's school days, holiday decorations, and old furniture, these spaces had become more storage graveyard than usable area. Tackling them one section at a time, Martha unearthed long-forgotten treasures and unnecessary junk. By the end, she'd reclaimed both spaces, even converting the basement into a cozy reading nook. 14. Learning when to let go. The process wasn't always easy. Martha struggled with guilt and hesitation at every turn. What helped her was reframing the act of decluttering, not as losing memories, but as making room for the present and the future. Each decision became a small victory. 15. The result. A home that reflects her life. After weeks of work, Martha's home wasn't just decluttered. It was transformed. Gone were the piles of papers, expired medications, and outdated decor. The newfound openness in her spaces matched the openness in her life and mind. She never realized how much stress the clutter had caused until it was gone. More than anything, she felt lighter. 16. Martha's advice to others. Start small, Martha says, whenever someone asks about her decluttering journey. You don't have to do everything at once. Set aside one drawer, one shelf, or one closet at a time. It's about progress, not perfection. She also reminds her friends that decluttering after 60 is not just about the physical space. It's about mental clarity. By letting go of unnecessary items, Martha found herself making room for new experiences, relationships, and hobbies. It wasn't just her home that transformed, it was her outlook on life. Martha's decluttering journey is a testament to how even the smallest changes can snowball into profound impacts. As she sits in her newly organized living room, surrounded by space and calm, she feels something unexpected: joy. Her home is no longer a record of the past, it's a peaceful place for the present and the future to begin.